Welcome to Talking Ketamine, episode 13. In this deep dive, we're really trying to get inside what a ketamine therapy session might actually, feel like.
Right.
We're stepping away from the purely clinical view for a bit and focusing on the immediate personal experience. This is for those of you listening who might be curious but haven't been through it yourselves. What happens during and right after?
Exactly. And to do that, we're drawing on a really interesting qualitative study. It's called a qualitative study of patients' experience of ketamine treatment for depression, the Ketamine Project.
Okay.
Published back in 2021, Journal of Affective Disorders reports. They did these deep interviews with 13 people, all diagnosed with treatment-resistant depression who'd had ketamine infusions.
13 people. Okay, so real firsthand accounts.
Absolutely. And our focus today is strictly on what they said it was like during the infusion and in that immediate aftermath. What can someone new potentially expect to feel?
Okay, great. So let's just jump right in then.
Huh?
As the ketamine starts working,
Yeah.
what did people typically notice first?
Yeah.
Those initial sensations.
Well, it's interesting. The majority talked about an initial phase that felt like a high, often with this enhanced perception and also dissociation.
Dissociation, like an out-of-body feeling.
Pretty much, yeah, that feeling of detachment. Someone actually described it as almost like an out-of-body experience watching my arm being lifted up.
Wow.
So this sense of, not being quite in your physical self, maybe that gives a bit of distance from the usual internal stuff that comes with depression.
That makes sense, yeah. A kind of temporary step back.
Yeah.
Did they mention other physical things beyond that detachment?
Oh, yeah. Some people directly compared it to taking psychoactive drugs or even alcohol.
Really?
Yeah, mentioning feeling giddy or the sensation of limbs being really heavy.
So heavy and giddy, not necessarily just purely pleasant then, in that first wave.
It could be mixed, it seems. But alongside that, many also said they felt very relaxed, even sleepy during the infusion. Yeah, like a floaty in and out state of kind of sleep was how one person put it. So it definitely seemed to give a sense of calm for many too.
Okay. And you mentioned enhanced perception. What did that actually look like?
Right, that was a big one. People often talked about sounds and sights becoming much more intense.
How so?
Well, colors might seem more vibrant and brighter, and sounds, even everyday ones, could become almost amplified.
Amplified? Like what?
Like someone remembered hearing clippy-cloppy heels really clearly, someone else heard birds tweeting incredibly vividly, or even lorries reversing, just normal sounds suddenly becoming really prominent.
No. Almost like the volume turned up on the world.
Kind of, yeah. As if the senses were temporarily dialed right up.
Okay, so you've got these quite unique physical and sensory things happening. What about the emotional side? Did that shift dramatically too, during and after?
Definitely. During the infusion itself, quite a few people actually described feeling happy, even laughing.
Laughing. During the infusion.
Yeah, and for some, that release felt really therapeutic. One person even talked about having tears of laughter.
Wow, tears of laughter. That sounds like a pretty profound shift from depression. What about afterwards? In the hours or days following?
That's where many reported this significant uplifted feeling, a real brightened mood.
Brighter. How did they describe it?
They used words like elated or feeling bright or even having fire in their belly.
Fire in their belly? I like that.
Yeah, and they really contrasted it with their usual depression. Someone said ketamine lifts darkness away, like a weight just gone.
A tangible sense of relief. Did that feeling then translate into, actual behavioral changes soon after?
Yes, quite clearly. A lot of them reported a noticeable boost in motivation. And importantly, the ability to actually do things they'd struggled with.
Like what sort of things?
Oh, everyday stuff. Cooking a proper meal, taking a shower, being sociable, cleaning the house. But also booger things, going to the gym, getting back to work, pursuing hobbies again.
So real practical changes.
Exactly. We heard specific examples like someone joining a running club or another person picking up their guitar again after a long time.
That's fantastic. It shows how that internal shift really impacts real life. What about connecting with other people?
That improved too for many. They talked about feeling more sociable, having more desire to communicate, relationships felt stronger. People felt comfortable having visitors again, which maybe hadn't happened for a while.
So it wasn't just an internal feeling, it was about re-engaging outward as well.
Precisely.
Okay, let's pivot slightly to the thinking, the cognitive side. What kind of mental shifts did people notice in the short term?
This was another really powerful area. People described having more positive thoughts and, crucially, fewer negative ones.
Fewer negative thoughts.
Yeah, someone used this great analogy. They said it was almost as if the angel and the demon on your shoulder, and all you could hear was the angel.
That really paints a picture, just the positive voice getting through. What about really difficult thoughts, like suicidal ideation, which sadly often comes with severe depression?
That was a really significant finding in the study. Some participants reported a major reduction in those thoughts.
A major reduction.
Yes, they talked about moving away from those dark thoughts towards wanting to live again, seeing a future. One person explicitly said their zest for life has returned.
Wow. That's that's incredibly powerful. More than just a mood lift, that sounds like a fundamental shift in perspective.
It really does seem like it. Some people talked about reframing thoughts or even reprogramming mindset. Like
Yeah.
their whole outlook on life and their worries just changed.
Programming mindset.
Yeah, and there was this amazing quote from someone trying to describe it. They said, I drive there to the clinic and everything is gray and black, and I come out and it is technicolor. It really is that powerful.
Technicolor. That's such a vivid way to describe that mental change. And did this new perspective come with, like, an urge to act on things?
Yes, exactly. Even if they weren't immediately, say, changing their whole life overnight, they reported this motivated thinking, a desire to take action, planning things, which itself shows a big change in their mental state.
It really sounds like the whole experience is shaped by more than just the drug itself. The setting, the people involved, that must matter too.
Oh, absolutely. That came through clearly in the study. Having a conducive and safe environment was really important.
What made it conducive?
Well, for instance, if the setting didn't feel too starkly clinical, that helped put people at ease, reduced anxiety going in.
Makes sense. And the staff, the nurses, doctors.
Hugely important. People really valued the medical expertise and professionalism.
Mhm.
Knowing they were in safe hands was key. But also beyond that, the therapeutic alliance, feeling that the staff were genuinely caring.
That personal connection.
Yeah, feeling treated like an individual, being remembered by the staff, feeling they genuinely cared. Even just having the chance to talk with the nurses was mentioned as a real benefit.
So it's the treatment, but also the context it's delivered in, that whole package.
Definitely.
But we should probably emphasize this isn't everyone's experience, right? There's variability.
Absolutely crucial point, yes. The study was clear that not everyone responds the same way. Some participants were considered non-responders. They just didn't get those antidepressant effects.
Okay, so it doesn't work for everyone.
Correct. And even for those who did benefit, how long those positive effects lasted really varied. For some, it might only have been a few days.
Only a few days. Yeah.
Yeah. And the study also noted that, difficult things happening in someone's life outside the treatment could sometimes negatively impact the experience too. It's not happening in a vacuum.
Right. So not a magic bullet, and the duration can be quite different for different people. That's important for anyone listening to understand.
Exactly. It's a complex treatment, and individual results really do vary.
Okay, so just to sort of wrap up this deep dive into these personal stories, it sounds like for many people dealing with tough depression, a ketamine session might involve this initial, maybe strange sensory experience,
Right, the dissociation, the altered senses.
followed by potentially a period of feeling emotionally lighter, brighter, more motivated, and maybe feeling a bit more like their normal self again.
That seems to be a common trajectory based on these accounts, yes. But, and it's a big but, always remembering that variability, how intense it is, how long it lasts, that's very individual.
It really has been insightful hearing these firsthand perspectives. So for you, our listener, hearing about these short-term experiences, the technicolor shift, the return of motivation, that feeling of normalcy, what questions does that spark for you?
Yeah, what does it make you think about the potential place for therapies like this in mental health care?
And perhaps what else might you want to understand about the longer picture? The sustainability, who it's best suited for, definitely gives you a lot to chew on.
It certainly does.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.